everyone. Thank you for joining us for the UK Awakens. I'm Rachel, and I'm very happy to welcome you to a sightseeing tour with a difference with City Cruises London. This virtual experience is part of Tiqets Awakening Weeks, which is a 6-week celebration of the reopening of more than 100 museums and attractions in 6 countries around the world. These venues have really worked night and day to reimagine their experiences, to introduce new hygiene measures so that you can visit safely again. And now they're rolling out the welcome mat with these online experiences for all of those of you who aren't able or able to travel yet or able to attend yet, but still want to experience and help reawaken these cultural institutions worldwide. The virtual experience will start in just a moment, but since some people are still joining us, I'll take just a moment to share some logistical information about what to expect and how to use this Zoom webinar. So first of all, if you have any questions for the presenter, you can submit them through the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. There'll be a Q&A at the end of the presentation, so send in your questions and we'll try to answer as many as possible. You can also vote on your favorite questions there. So even if you don't have a question of your own, go in there and press the thumbs up on the questions you like, and then we can be sure to ask the best questions first. This is a Zoom webinar, as I said, so your camera won't be on, but you can still use the chat to communicate with some of your fellow attendees and the speakers. I see some of you already joining where you're joining with us from. So hi from Rome. Hi, nice to meet you, Luisa. And you can also switch your settings from all panelists to all panelists and attendees so you can chat with each other while this is going on. If there are any technical difficulties at all throughout the session, use the chat, send it to all panelists, and then we'll help you out as soon as possible. That said, just leaving and rejoining the meeting will fix 99% of your problems if you face any. Finally, this presentation is being recorded and we'll send it out to all the registrants in the coming weeks. So don't worry, you can share it with all your friends later. So without further ado, now we can get to the exciting part. I am happy to hand it over to our host for this virtual experience, Matthew Beckwith, the Director of Operations at City Cruises London. And he's going to transport us to the world of London. So Matthew, take it away.
Thank you, Rachel. That's absolutely fantastic. Hello, everybody. My name's Matthew Beckwith, Operations Director here at City Cruises. It's so nice to have you on board with us today. We're going to take a journey very shortly up through central London to look at all of the sites and give you that virtual tour. What I thought we'd do start with, we'd just introduce you to who City Cruises really is. City Cruises has been on the River Thames since 1976. It was actually started by my father and my granddad back then. They started with a fuel barge on the River Thames, and they were selling fuel to all of the boat operators out here. And it was a 6-month business that we had. They could operate to, because the passenger boats only really operated in the summer months back then. So during that time, they took the fuel barge, and then in 1985, they decided to sell the fuel barge and buy their first passenger boat. So my father went off to buy a passenger boat called the King, a small vessel that travelled private charters up to the Hampton Court at the time, and then developed on from there. Now, the wonderful story of that was that during the time of them buying the King, my mum was actually in hospital giving birth to myself while they were signing the contract, desperate to get a boat, desperate to get underway, that they wouldn't allow anything to stop them. So even during that time, they were a happy time buying another boat. We're now as far as York at the top of England, and down in Poole in Dorset on the coast. So we can venture out into different areas. We'd love you to come and join us at any one of our locations. So moving on from 85, we purchased a number of vessels in the Pool of London, operating the main journey that we'll see, which is the Tower to Westminster journey, the Golden Mile, as people call it here in London, are locally known. And then from there, we moved into the first boat to be built on the River Thames for 25 years. It was called the Millennium of London. It was built and launched in 1996, and we had the honour and privilege of having it named by Her Majesty the Queen. Now, on that wonderful day, 18th of October 1996, Her Majesty and all the dignitaries board the Millennium of London at Tower Pier. And we're ready to set off on a sightseeing trip. We're going to take them up to Westminster, where she continues her journey. But on the way up, the windows started steaming up. So many people on the boat. It was a rainy day. It all steamed up. It was quite incredible. And the commentator, one of our captains, he was at the front there giving a commentary, and he looked and he said, well, over on your right-hand side, you will see St. Paul's Cathedral. And he goes on to tell the story of St. Paul's. And at that time, everybody looks over to the right with these steamed up windows. No one can see a thing. And Her Majesty the Queen leans over to Philip and says, do you think it's still there? So she has a wonderful sense of humour. And of course, we then tried to get the windows changed. So at that point, we had the whole of the team coming up, and in good old London style, we got our J-cloths out and we tried to wipe down the windows to get rid of that steam and that image. But they would keep going back. But what a great time was had by all. Then the company moved on, and we then moved our fleet down to the Millennium Dome and operated to what is now known as the O2. Back then, we operated that for a year before our service headed into Greenwich, which is now part of our main service here in London, servicing Westminster, Waterloo, Tower and Greenwich piers. We had 4 new boats built for the Dome run before entering into 2012, where we were Olympic partners for the equestrian, travelling all the people down through central London down to the equestrian site at Greenwich. And we had the Millennium Diamond that was built to execute that. We had that built over in Croatia, shipped over on a large cargo vessel before having in service here. Now in 2013 we launched our Thames Jet, our high-speed Thames Jet program. So we have high-speed thrill rides to take you up and down the Thames as well, and also a full range of programs that we have there from dining experience. We have a wonderful dining program that we operate: lunch cruises, tea cruises, our famous showboat that's been running now for just over 20 years. We've been operating that. Very fantastic products that we have there. And we've got the evening cruises and jazz cruises and alike as well. We are now formed part of the Hornblower Group. We're now part of the Hornblower family. For those of you over in the US, you're probably well aware of the wonderful Hornblower family, and we're very pleased and proud to be part of them moving forward. But what we do is, just while I have the opportunity here, I'm just going to turn this around, because we are just at our base. So this is our headquarters in central London. So you can see our boats where we moor up of an evening. Come in the morning, go home of a night. This is all our boats here. So I'm just going to try and move out of the wind for you a little bit. So while we're on board, the vessel we're on now is the City Gamma. She is a 400-seater capacity vessel that we had refurbished back in 2 years ago. This vessel was completely refurbished, completely taken off, cut at deck level. We rebuilt a 2-story vessel. Now, as you can see here, just for everybody, we have sections of the boat that closed off to make sure that everybody's safe during this period through the COVID environment. We do have a one-way system throughout the boat downstairs, and we have a one-way system that operates up here on the top deck and through all of our craft. Cleaning regimes that happen every 30 minutes. Now, I'm sorry for the slight wind. And I'm going to try and take you up inside the wheelhouse. So we'll just pop in and see. Here's Jamie and Charlie, our captain and first officer on board today.
Good afternoon.
How are we doing? Good to see you. Thank you. So this is a bit of an exclusive view just here. We'll give you inside our wheelhouse. So we have our AIS system that we have here. This is our tracking system. This tells us all the vessels on the River Thames that we can see and what they're doing, and we can then contact them via our VHF radio. So we can be in constant communication with everybody there. We have our 2 engines we've got here. These are the control panels for each engine, and our control systems with the throttles involved there as well. As you can see, the steering wheel we've got here just to steer the vessel, and this is our rudder indicators here. So 2 engines, 2 rudders, and it can see which way the vessel is operating. Emergency steering system. So there's 3 different types of the systems on here for steering. This is the secondary emergency system, and this is a panel that tells us any alarms going and fire systems. Fire. So an inside view of the wheelhouse, and this is the view they get. Now we're shortly going to go up and through Tower Bridge, where we can start our commentary. So this vessel that we're on, so the City Gamma, we actually when we designed this boat, we wanted to make sure that we were looking at the generations, the new future of emissions and etc. So we had it perfectly designed so that we run less fuel. We can operate through recycling units now on board the boat, so that we can really look at our sustainability for the future here. So this is we've had 2 of these vessels that we've introduced, and it's been a great start for them, and they're really working well for us. And then from there we can then look at how we can design the rest of our fleet to sort of meet those new requirements and new emissions and etc. Now very shortly we're going to get a view here as we Hermitage Wharf. And these are houseboats that you can see. Look at the wheel, a wonderful old vessel that we've got here, still operating, still going. They do private events on here. They're private charters. Now there used to just be 2 crew that would operate this, a captain and a deckhand, an apprentice. And the apprentice would climb up and let all the sails down, and they'd get underway. They don't have engines on, so they operate just purely by sail, and they still operate today. You can hire these boats out and get underway. Now I did tell you a few minutes ago just on the history of city cruises, and we're actually coming up to what was called the fuel barge Freddy, which is just up here. Now fuel barge Freddy was the fuel barge that my father and my granddad owned, and it was named after my granddad, which was Freddy. And this is the fuel barge Freddy. We're actually coming up. It's amazing to still see it in use. It's wonderful. It's run by the Thames Marine Services now, and they still fuel all of the River Thames operators here and deliver that too. So now they can deliver fuel to vessels. We have ours delivered to us. It's a bit easier than all of the 40 boats that operate around the country to go to fuel. So we now do it all ourselves. There's old fuel barge Freddy. Now we're just going to pick up a bit of speed so that we can start our tour. So up here we have the Royal Navy headquarters here on the River Thames. This is the HMS President, and this is for the Royal Naval Reserves. So this is their HQ here. Now ahead of us we have Tower Bridge. It's not actually as old as it seems. It opened in 1894. There is a steel structure behind the stonework. The stonework was actually put on the outside to blend in with its neighbour that we'll shortly see, the Tower of London. But the bridge has got 2 centre bascles, the roadway in the middle, and they can open and close in just 90 seconds. There's actually only once a year that the bridge doesn't open, and that's during the London Marathons. It's the only time that you can't actually have the bridge open. It's free of charge to have it open. You do have to have the right clearance to make sure it's open. And that was taken from a while ago, that a guy arranged to have the bridge open, and he said he's going to come through on a big boat, and he wants to propose to his girlfriend, and he came through on a little rowing boat. So the bridge changed the rules, and now you have to have the right clearance, and you have to have proof to make sure it's definitely worth opening for. We're going to go right underneath the centre bascles of this bridge. And then we're going to come into the Tower of London over here to our right-hand side, just as we travel up the river. Now, the tower has been many things in its time, from a royal zoo, a place of execution. For the last 600 years, is where we have housed our crown jewels. And if you look on the river's wall, you can see the bricked up archway with the letters above it, entry to the Traitors' Gates. And this was actually known as London's first one-way street, because once you went up here, you'd have your head chopped off and you weren't coming back. You were then taken up through the archway, your head was placed on the bloody tower and chopped off with a large blunt axe. The good old days, as they call it. Now, over this side, we have the large glass building there. That is the headquarters of the Mayor of London. Now, they actually spent £4 million to have this building come up with a name. They got an agency, and they spent hours and hours and months upon months of negotiations and debating, and they finally come up with the name City Hall. That's £4 million well spent. Now we're going to go through and see the HMS Belfast. She's an 11,500 ton cruiser. She's got 12 main guns, 6 at the front, 6 at the back, and they can fire a £1 shell some 14 land miles. She took part during the Second World War, last fired her guns in anger during the Korean campaign. She's now permanently moored here as a floating museum. Well worth a visit. HMS Belfast, you can see there. Lovely. Now, this over here to what is our left, as we travel up, this is London Bridge City. It is, in fact, its own little city. It's got its own pier, hospital, shopping centre, restaurant, arcades, even its own security team and fire brigades over here. And just above it, you'll see towering there, London's Shard of Glass. With the Shard as a wonderful platform and experience on the top there. You can go up and have a real 360 view of London right at the very top. And you can always purchase those tickets along with our boat tickets here at City Cruises. So there's the Shard of Glass you can see. Now we're coming up to what is a world famous bridge. This is London Bridge. London Bridge. Lots of people get this bridge confused with Tower Bridge that we just spoke about. But this is the world famous London Bridge. There was the one before this that now stands over the man-made lake, Lake Havasu, in the Arizona desert. And this bridge was opened by Her Majesty the Queen. And just to make sure you do believe me, if you can see it there, we can see London Bridge carved into the stonework of the bridge. Now, it was a bridge that was put here over 2,000 years ago by the Romans, which is why London stands where it does today, and we then knew it as Londinium. Southwark Cathedral to our left, third largest place of worship here in London. And just along from here, we have Sir Francis Drake's ship, the Golden Hind. Now, this is an exact working replica of the original vessel that sailed around the world. This vessel has actually done more sea miles than the original. It has been around the world twice, covering the exact same journey. They're doing a lot of repairs to the vessel, and there is talk of it coming out of the dock and possibly doing another trip. So keep your eyes open for the Golden Hind being underway. Now we're going to go through Cannon Street Railway Bridge very shortly. Incredibly busy railway bridge servicing the station just over as we travel up to our right. But look at the River Thames here. Look how fast the Thames is flowing between the abutments. And you can just see how strong the river really is. It's running about 5 to 7 knots. Now the Old Anchor pub to our left, a wonderful old pub. And it was said that William Shakespeare used the attics of this tavern as changing rooms. And that's because the original Shakespeare's Globe once stood just over here to our left-hand side. Southwark Bridge, the narrowest and least used bridge to span across the River Thames. Give them a little wave on the top there, we can see. Give everyone a wave where we can. The narrowest and least used bridge to span here on the river. When they designed this bridge, they actually forgot to put the main approach roads in. So it's very difficult to find. There are not many people actually use it. And they always say, if you ever see anybody on the bridge, do give them a wave, because they're probably lost. Now, coming over to our left, we've got a few attractions as we come up here to our left-hand side. We've got the white building there with the thatched roof. Now, that is the Shakespeare's Globe Playhouse Theatre. It's an exact working replica of the original, even down to the materials used and the way that it was built. and they do perform Shakespeare's plays there during the summer months. Also to our left, the building with the tall chimney is the old Bankside Power Station, and that was shut down in the 1970s as a power station, reopened in the year 2000 as the new Tate Modern Art Gallery. If you want to go and have a look inside there, you can. So most of it's free of charge. Certain exhibitions you've got in there as well that you do have to pay for, but definitely worth a visit, the old Bankside Power Station. Now, connecting the South Bank, which is on our left here, to the north, which is the Millennium Footbridge that we're just going to go beneath. Now, what I call art is over here. What I call art is just coming up here to St Paul's Cathedral. You just see it coming into view. St Paul's Cathedral. St Paul stands 365 feet high from the ground to the tip of the gold cross on the top. It took 35 years to construct, designed by Sir Christopher Wren, a real masterpiece that stands over our skyline in London, St Paul's Cathedral. You can actually go up and have a look, go into the St Paul's, look round the Whispering Gallery, which is the big part of the dome that you can see, and then you can go right to the very top and look some fantastic views over London. Now this is Blackfriars Pier we're coming up to, and then just along is Blackfriars Road bridges, railway and road bridges were coming up. Excellent design that they've put onto the Blackfriars Railway Bridge here. You can actually get to the railway station from both sides of the bridge there. So there's an entrance over on the south, entrance up on the north, and it gives you one long platform to use. Very clever idea, very worthwhile indeed for the people that are using this station, Blackfriars Railway Line. Now, when we go through the bridge, you'll see some red columns either side, and they haven't actually removed these columns, and these were the supports and of the foundations of the original Blackfriars Railway Bridge. They didn't remove them because it would have undermined the foundations of the other bridges if they did. So they left them here, and you can actually see they built on top of one of them there. So there's the old railway bridges, archways there, you can see. Now this is the Blackfriars Road Bridge, opened in 1869 by Queen Victoria. Blackfriars Road Bridge, which has gone beneath. So over here, we've got Unilever House, great designs and architecture here in London. Some real fantastic sculptures they put into this. We've got the old City of London School for Boys there with the green roof where our famous Winston Churchill once entered into that school. That was his old school there. And Zion College that you can see as well, home for all the clergymen of the country, now owned by a private bank. So we're just going to go up and over it. It's very windy out here. We've got some high winds on the river. So I'm trying to go from one side to the other just to make sure that you can hear me as well. So let us just drop down the other side so we can see the incredible Oxo Tower. Now, the Oxo company, the company we make a small stock cube from, they wanted to advertise here on the banks of the River Thames, but it is in fact illegal to do so. So to get around this law, they actually decided to put their logo into that tower as windows. A very clever idea. Now, Oxo were taken to court over the matter, but we've always reckoned that the judge, well, he must have liked his gravy, because he said it was just a coincidence that it spelled out the brand name OXO that you can see on the top there. And they shine a bright red light behind the tower of a night, just to make sure you can see it. Now, this is the South Bank still to our left. We'll stay with the South Bank on our left-hand side as we travel up towards Westminster all the way through. A fabulous place to come and visit, a real buzzy, lively tourist area, and there's more of the market stalls coming up daily and the evening trade that's along here. A real fantastic place to come and see. But this, what we're looking at, is Kent House. Now, Kent House is home of London Weekend Television Studios. That's ITV, or channel number 3, and it's where most of our daytime chat shows and TV programmes are filmed over here to our left-hand side. You'll also see the building with the electronic signboard. That's our National Theatre, home of 3 theatres, the Cottesloe, the Littleton and the Olivier. Definitely worth a visit there. So normally we get some of the plays that are performed here before they move into the West End. So you're getting a real preview of some of the real talent shows that will be moving through, say, into the West End that you can see at our National Theatre. And one of my favourite bridges were coming up to. This is Waterloo Road Bridge, known here on the River Thames as the Ladies' Bridge. It was built during the Second World War, where most of the men were away in the armed services. So over 80% of the workforce for this bridge was ladies. What a fantastic self-cleaning stone. And every time it rains here in London, it gives the bridge a thorough wash down. And when we get there, just look at the underneath, and you'll see how dirty it gets where the rain cannot reach. This is Waterloo Road Bridge. Oh, so just saying, this is Waterloo Road Bridge, and you just see, look, just how dirty it is there, look, where the rain cannot reach. So over here to our, just come up here on the North Shore, further up ahead, we have the stone obelisk that you can see. Now, this is Cleopatra's Needle. It is 3,500 years old. It was given to us by a very grateful Egyptian government for the victory at the Battle of the River Nile. And it's been standing on our shores here for a good few hundred years. Definitely get yourself a capture picture with the old obelisk there. There's only 2 of them, and we have the proud ownership of having one here. Now, coming back into here, we've got the Royal Festival Hall, the only remaining building from the Festival of Britain back in the 1950s, and it is a concert hall that is completely soundproof. And that's because of the noisy railway line will shortly come up and pass beneath. This is the Charing Cross Railway Bridge. There's 2 footbridges either side, the Hungerford Walkway and the Golden Jubilee Walkways that you can see here. It's a very noisy railway bridge indeed. Now, we may have just dropped a bit of wind, so what I'm going to try and do is get back up on the top there, view, a full view. Now, Charing Cross Railway Bridge services Charing Cross Station, just over here to our right-hand side, and we are shortly just going to pass beneath the bridge. Now, the River Thames itself, let me tell you a little about the River Thames itself. We're travelling here right now through 2,000 years of liquid history. Incredible. It's a real honour and to be serving on the River Thames and travelling and talking to you about it now. Now, you might think the River Thames is very dirty, not very clean river. It is, in fact, one of the cleanest commercial rivers in Europe. The tide comes into London for 7 hours. It then turns round and it ebbs back out to sea. Now, it turns up that riverbed and gives it that dirty, muddy look that we're looking at. They do say you can actually drink the River Thames water now. If you take a glass of the River Thames water and you allow the sediment to drop to the bottom, you can, in fact, drink it. It may kill you, but you can drink it. It's entirely up to you. All jokes aside, it is incredibly clean. And we've got over 110 different species of fish out here on the River Thames. We do get a lot of porpoises. We get a lot of seals. And we even get some dolphins. So the captain's just signalled to me. We're going to head up through to Westminster Bridge so we get a closer look for the House of Parliament that you'll shortly get to see. But what a view I now have to show you here. This is the London Eye. Standing 450 feet high, it has 32 capsules, taking 25 passengers per capsule. It will take you around half an hour to complete your journey around the wheel. It is London's #1 tourist attraction that you can see there. We operate to this pier as well. This is Waterloo Pier. So if you do get a chance to go on the London Eye, you can just drop down and jump on one of our boats here at Waterloo, so the London Eye. Now behind this impressive building that you can see, this is County Hall. This used to be the home of the Greater London Council till it was abolished back in the 1970s. It is now home to the Shrek Adventure, the London Aquarium, the County Hall Hotel, a real masterpiece of building and structural that you can see here. What iconic buildings we really do have. And there is a view as we come across to see the world famous Big Ben. Now everybody around the world calls this Big Ben, and this is at Westminster Pier. Let me just tell you about Westminster Pier before we go into there. Westminster Pier, our service runs daily from here, from 10 o'clock in the morning every day. You can see one of our other craft there, one of our Millennium boats that we had. So just come and jump on here. Now, Big Ben, everybody calls it Big Ben. Even I do. But what we're looking at here is the St. Stephen's Clock and Tower was its formal original name. What Big Ben is actually the nickname of the 13.5-ton bell inside the tower that chimes the hour and the hour only. And you just get a lovely view. Unfortunately, they're doing some major refurbishment to the clock, so you don't get the best view. But come and jump on board and you'll definitely get another view next time you come over and see us. This is the Houses of Parliament. We're very lucky to come up through Westminster Bridge to have a good look at the Houses of Parliament, known as the Palaces of Westminster. And you can see the Victoria Tower at the back there flying the Union flag. Now, when the Union flag flies, it does in fact mean that Parliament is in session. This means they're working inside the building. People often get this mistaken as well. People call this the Union Jack. It is the Union flag. It's only classed as the Union Jack when it flies on the jackmast of one of Her Majesty's ships. The old Union flag, Houses of Parliament, Palaces of Westminster, you get to see here. And we also get to see the House of Lords and the House of Commons. You can see by the different colours of the benches. Never should the Lords and the Commons ever meet. And therefore they have their own balconies as well here to celebrate. Now, hopefully you just heard that noise, that tooting noise. That's our horn telling us that the captain has just signalled to say that we are turning around. We're going around to the port. There's 4 and 2. It's 4 short blasts followed by 2 short blasts. Now, the port is left, which is 2, and starboard is right, which is 1. So when you hear that, it just means that we're turning around. Let all the other vessels in the area know. Now, let me turn this round and give you another wonderful view here of London. Welcome to London, everybody. And I do hope you're enjoying this view. We also have St Thomas's Hospital just over here, just ahead of us, the large building that you can see. St Thomas's Hospital, the very famous St Florence Nightingale. This was her home. This is where she made her name for herself and looked after everybody. And it's a very famous hospital here in London. So we've now turned the vessel around. We've now completed that part of our trip up through central London. And what we'd normally do now is head into one of our destinational piers. We'd be able to jump off, have a look around, and if you wished and have one of our rover tickets, you can jump back on and join us later to another destination, and we can be your main port of transport to move you from those wonderful locations. We're very lucky at the moment with the lack of wind that I get to sit here on the top deck to be able to talk to you. So just a little story, if I may, as we travelled up to Westminster in 2007, it was National Tourism. And the end of that week was Prince Charles was the patron. And at the end of that week, Prince Charles jumps on the boat with the dignitaries and he heads up towards Westminster, where the week dinner and at the Houses of Parliament. So I think he's had a very long week visiting all the attractions around the UK. So at the end of that, I guess he'd had enough maybe, but bless him, he's dignitaries. But the great part about that was when we were travelling through, we got up towards Westminster and we're heading in there. He clearly kind of maybe had enough for the day, popped in our wheelhouse into the bridge to see us, and there's a few of us in there. And he gave some great stories, some great tales of his Navy time and his military experience. And while he was there, my father said to him, "Sir," he said, "would you mind signing the guest book for me?" He said, "Oh, the guest book, yeah, of course. I suppose I'm the most famous person that signed your guest book." He said, my father said, "No, actually, sir." He said, "Your mum signed it twice." We had the other honour of not only having the Queen with us in 1996, we had the honour of having Her Majesty the Queen board us and take her down to the Millennium Dome, as it was known then, on the year 2000, when they celebrated which is now what is called the O2 Arena. So we had the privilege of lighting what was the wall of fire that set the whole of sort of London through Tower Bridge, and a big flames going off to celebrate that she lit from the back of the boat there. So another great iconic time for us here on the Thames. So if you get to travel with us, you will be travelling on history and with royalty, and what royalty have travelled before. So Rachel, if I can, do we have any questions?
Yes,
that
we
are on board?
Questions. And just as a reminder for everyone tuning in, you can use the Q&A box at the bottom to type in your questions and vote on your favorites, but we have plenty to get started with. So the first question is from Dave Blackwell, who wants to know, during the cruise, there was a large torpedo-shaped or egg-shaped building, and he says that he's seen a couple like it throughout Europe, including in Barcelona, and he wonders, are they all by the same architect? He doesn't think they have that design in the US.
I can't comment about the rest of them in Europe, but the building that it's referring to was actually owned by Swiss Re. They're an insurance banking company. They insure insurance companies. And when they opened this building, they lit the building up green as part of the celebration. And therefore, the building actually became known as the Gherkin, and it has commonly now had the nickname of the Gherkin through London. So now we have the Gherkin, is the building that he's referring to, that bullet-shaped building.
That's great. Marlene Parker wants to know, was this trip at high tide or low tide?
Great question. We're travelling almost at high tide. So we're almost coming up. The tide's now running into London. So we've got a bit more to come through. Probably another few hours left for high tide, but it is roaring in at the moment. So we're right in the sort of the peak, if you like, of that tide coming into London.
Great. And then a couple questions about the family business side of things. One person wants to know if you'll pass this business on to your kids.
So as I said, we are now part of the Hornblower family. So as a family, we exited into Hornblower. We joined their ranks, and so we will carry it on for generations in terms of making sure that it is safe and it is looked after from a London perspective, and who knows, grow it from there. So I would love to make sure that it is part of the family for generations to come, along with the backing and support of the great team at Hornblower, who are predominantly based in the US. We're their first acquisition outside of the US, and it's a real honour to work with them, and they are fantastic.
Great. And then I'm curious, what motivated your dad to first start the business?
Well, my dad was actually in Iran at the time. He was a croupier in Iran, working over there. My granddad worked on the River Thames. He was managing one of our piers, Tower Pier, for a different organisation, and the opportunity of the fuel barge came up for sale. So my granddad phoned him up and said, "I've got a great idea, son. Let's buy a fuel barge." So together they went into business, and my dad then flew home from Iran to help run the fuel barge business. So he actually then purchased a couple of wine bars just up the back of behind London Eye that you can see just over my shoulder. The wine bar that he then purchased, he was there one evening working, and this beautiful, wonderful young lady came into the wine bar to have a drink. They started chatting. I would say the rest is history because I was born, and that's my dear mum, and they've been together for just over 35 years.
That's great. And how young were you when you got to, is it driving your first boat, steering your first boat?
Yeah, so I got apprenticed at 15, and then qualified at 21, which is the age, the youngest age you're allowed to qualify to become a captain, and then spent a good few years on the boats operating them as well. So a great opportunity to work with some wonderful people and to learn a lot of history about the River Thames as well. So a long while, may I say.
Great. And then someone wants to know how many cruises you do per year.
How many cruises we do a year? So we operate daily a sightseeing service from 10 o'clock till about 6 o'clock in the evening throughout the year on our main service. So we operate about every 40 minutes during the winter, and then every 20 minutes during the summer. And how many we do during the year? To put a figure on it, that's a great question. I'm not sure I could tell you exactly how many. It's an awful lot. So we've got in London, there's a fleet of 20 vessels that we operate, and normally during this time of the year, we'd have the whole fleet out up and running, and then about half the fleet during the winter time. The other half of those are then going into dry docking and getting ready for the next season. So all fleet and all hands to the deck during April to October.
Great. And then Laura wants to know, what is your favorite bridge and why?
Well, I think the favourite bridge, I've got a couple if I can. It's difficult to choose. So my favourite one really is Waterloo Bridge. I think the stories of Waterloo Bridge, the fact it was known here, as I say, locally here as the Ladies' Bridge, built during that Second World War with a huge force by the ladies to get that bridge completed while the men were away in the armed services. So it has real history, real passion. It was actually also the only bridge to be bombed during the Second World War and actually damaged, rebuilt, and is still operational today. But I guess the iconic bridge of Tower Bridge has to be everybody's favourite. You can walk up and across the bridge. You can go through the Tower Bridge experience. Again, we can get you into the Tower Bridge. You can see online at citycruises.com, and you can see the tickets to get into Tower Bridge. You can go up, see part of that experience. You can walk across the bottom. The fact it opens up to let those big ships in and out of the upper pool of London is just iconic. You can't beat the sight of a sailing vessel. When I pointed out the Wheel earlier, the sailing ship, the Wheel, when she travels up through Tower Bridge, you can just imagine how it was when it was first built. And those vessels in and out of the upper pool, probably about 90 to 100 times a day, that bridge was open and shut. Incredible. So I guess overall, Tower Bridge is the answer to that question.
Great. And someone wants to know, what's the scariest thing that has happened while doing these cruises? There was ever bad weather, maybe?
We do get some bad weather, but you know, the great thing about these vessels is we purposely built them for the comfort inside as well. So all of our vessels are built with the passenger comfort in mind. If it does rain, we have full glass panoramic views that we can see. And if I just get a chance, let me just show inside of the vessel, looking at miss anything. This whole just froze there. So you really don't miss anything with those windows that we have, those panoramic windows downstairs that are built for the customer's comfort. So if it does rain, it is a great place to be. We've got the coffee machine, we've got the bar, and you've got the experience going inside. So I definitely join in the rain. It's where I'd like to be. Scariest moments, I think, unfortunately, there are people here in London that choose to maybe end their life, and sometimes, as our vessels are near facilities, we have to assist in people to get people out the river. We do have the RNLI lifeboat, the Royal National Lifeboat Institution. The busiest lifeboat station in the country operates here in London. And that's due to, as I say, people that accidentally or on purpose fall in the river. So part of our duty is ensuring that everybody is safe and that we can try and get them out as well.
On a lighter note, someone wants to know the estimated time of completion for the renovation for Big Ben Clock Tower.
So I think it was originally closed for 18 months. I think they've done that just over 9 months or 10 months now. But I'm not sure of the new estimated time, just because of obviously the workforce being closed during COVID. So I'll probably just have to check online to see where that is, and you can probably just check it out at Googling Big Ben, and I'm sure it will tell us the new ETA. If not, we'll try and find out as well. So yeah, it was about 18 months to 2 years was the time frame for closure.
Great. And just a reminder to those on the call, we're on our last couple of questions. So if you have one, get it in now. Valentina wants to know, you clearly know London well. What will be the best tip for visiting the city for the first time?
Oh, so my favourite here in London is what we call pie and mash. Now, I'm not sure many people have heard of pie and mash. This is pie and mash with a twist. An East London thing, and it's now become South London as well, that you have pie and mash and what's called liquor. It's a parsley sauce that you can get. Now, if you get on one of our trips down to Greenwich, it's a real local area, Greenwich. There's a wonderful history, the Royal Borough of Greenwich, that you can go and visit. So I would recommend jumping on a boat, head down to Greenwich, and in there they've got one of the oldest pie and mash shops that you can. If you want traditional London food, you can do that. If you're not as adventurous as having the liquor, you can have it with gravy. There's also fish and chips. Is obviously a UK, definitely on a Friday is our fish and chip day that everybody seems to eat it. So get yourself a fish and chips in the local areas. There's some wonderful fish and chip shops around. I would head over through the City of London. Through the City of London on a weekend is very, very quiet time. It's a great time to have a good look around the city, and you get to see those attractions kind of on your own. Jump in on one of the bus tours as well. Why not link up with either Big Bus or Original? They service us as well. So, you know, we link with them and work with them very closely. So you can always jump on a bus tour and that give you a good view of London. But my probably top tip is jumping on at Westminster, seeing the sights of London down to Greenwich, having a bit of pie and mash, see those old sights. And then you can always jump on a return trip and enter into our happy hour and have a few drinks on the way back to your hotel. So that'll be my top tip.
That sounds like a great itinerary. Okay, Margaret wants to know, what is your favorite London or Thames history book that you would recommend?
Thames history book. Thames London is a book that you can have a look through, and it's got some great stories. Most of our information that we learn and where we get a lot of our research from, if you like, is we'll go and visit these places. We'll go and visit and have a look, and we'll actually go to the main attractions to learn the history about that. And we've had our stories passed down through generations here on the River Thames to pass on our history. So it's been, for us, it's been more of a word of mouth, and then go and visit, go and experience, than maybe sit and read our vessels. Normally when we have to read, it's a navigational book we have to study. So not normally London. We enjoy it, visiting and studying London ourselves, and then we learn navigation through our books and textbooks that we have to get our licenses.
Great. And then the last question for tonight, someone wants to know how you would describe the relationship between the city and the river nowadays.
Oh, the River Thames is the heartbeat of London. As I said earlier, there are just over 2,000 years of liquid history we are traveling through here on the river. It's so iconic. How iconic? If you look at a map, a tube map, you will see the river running through it. That's how iconic the River Thames really is, to just show you exactly where those stations are. If you ever saw a tube map about the river, I think people would be confused. The most famous part is that big U in there, that Isle of Dogs, that it's there. Now, it is actually an island, the Isle of Dogs, and it was actually called the Isle of Dogs because they do say that Charles I used to keep his hunting dogs on the island when he lived at the big house in Greenwich at the Royal House. And you could hear the dogs howling of a night, and that's the Isle of Dogs. So that's one story. Whether you believe it or not, it's entirely up to you, but it's one that I absolutely love. I'm from the Isle of Dogs, so that's where I was born and raised, over on the Isle of Dogs, or part of East London. So how do I see it? I think it's the main way of getting around. I think people associate London by the river. It is incredible to come and visit, and you really do get to see every major attraction through central London here. Shall I, if I got a chance here, look, while we've come back through, we're travelling back downriver. Now, you actually can see here a couple of glass buildings. The big one right here that I like, this is actually called the walkie-talkie. So when all these wonderful buildings out there, and then next to it is the cheese grater. I love this one. I can tell you a little story about cheese graters in a second, but the walkie-talkie. Now, this has a curve on the front. Now, when they designed this, they had the curve, and what was happening? The sun was hitting the top, beaming down to the bottom, and actually put a hole in the bonnet of a car that was parked underneath. It was that strong. So they had to put a film that runs over the top of the walkie-talkie. And if I turn the camera around, you might be able to see the different colour of the glass as we go through. And that's a film that now runs right through. And the cheese grater, this wasn't anything like the original design. The cheese grater was a big tall building with a big open top, roof gardens, and a bar that was going to be on there. But there's an old law that doesn't allow you to ever block out the view of St Paul's Cathedral in any one of the streets in the city of London. So it was a tiny, tiny street that that it was going to block out the view. Not allowed, not acceptable. Planning had to change. And they then changed it into that cheese grater shape that cut up. So it's a big base with a very slim top. And we've all called it the cheese grater.
Great. I love the creativity of the nicknames for the buildings there, from City Hall to the cheese grater. And Dave snuck in one last question, actually. He wanted to know if you have to remain seated during the cruise, because it looks like a lot of the bridges come quite close to your head. So do people have to remain seated when I guess you're going under the bridges?
We ask you to take care when you're on board. You can move around the vessel. You can get up and take pictures. You can move around. Of course, if you want to visit the bar downstairs, the toilet's also located downstairs as well. So we do say, please feel free to move around the vessel when you're traveling. And we do ask when we come into the piers that you do remain seated during that point. But otherwise, please enjoy the vessel, enjoy the experience. In terms of how close we get, no, we've got head clearance here. These guys are well trained. These bridges are nice for us. There's only one bridge which is gets close, which is Blackfriars Bridge, but even then we have over a good 1.5 meters clearance as we go through. So unless you're incredibly tall, you will be safe, and we would ever let you know. So that's all part of our port passage plans that we have to follow to make sure that everybody's safe here on the river when you're traveling. But come on board and enjoy it, and do have a look around and get the best views. I'm absolutely loving the views as I talk to you that I get to see as well, that are up behind me. And we just give you another view there of views. This is Waterguard House. This is a lovely old building, this one here, that you can see. This is the headquarters of Her Majesty's Customs and Excise. So if you come over, you come into the country with any contraband you shouldn't have, alcohol, tobacco, etc., it is taken off of you, placed in the basement of this building, and said to be burnt every 6 months. Now, my mate works here, and his Christmas parties go on for weeks, so I'm not sure what they really do. But that's our Waterguard House, you can see there. But look at the old buildings there, Waterguard House, and the modern buildings above it. This is London. This is the River Thames, and that is the City of London that you're looking at.
Lovely. Well, I'm sure everyone on the line hopes that they can visit quite soon. And for those of you who are in the UK, you can participate in this reawakening in person. So on the same landing page where you signed up for this experience, you can find more things to do offline in London this week. You can find more experiences to do online as well from many of the buildings actually we passed on this journey. So you can see London from the top of the Shard or the London Eye tomorrow if you're so inclined. And thank you so much to City Cruises, to Matthew for hosting. Thanks to everyone here for joining. We're really looking forward to finding more ways to experience culture with you all again soon.
It's been wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining and participating in our journey. It's very kind of you. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye now.